Ignition sequence starts. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Hey everybody, this is the digital asset investor and coinpaprika.com. I'm looking at the prices right here, and this is my little list of stuff, and everything a little negative, but just kind of flat today. Nothing big, nothing crazy going on with that. Now, here is something crazy. Jim Rickards was live at Bretton Woods this week, okay? And I've got a couple of clips you need to see. This one is called The Dark Side of CBDCs. Listen.
Right. But you can implement it with a digital currency. This is the hidden agenda, but they got to do two things. One, roll out the CBDC, which they're doing, and get rid of cash. Those two things will go hand in hand. But we will end up worse than Communist China. In Communist China, if you're on the bad list, you can't, it's a social credit score. Yeah. You can't buy a plane ticket. You can't buy a train ticket. You can't pay for your kid to go to a good school because you're on the blacklist because you did something on social media that said Xi Jinping looks like Winnie the Pooh, which he does. But that's
we're recording this.
But that's I say this on Twitter, so that's okay. But that's what we're getting to. That's the dark side of central bank digital currencies. But it's the real side, it's the real hidden agenda.
And that's why every single time Jay Powell is prompted in front of Congress, the Republican Jay Powell says, "We'll get back to you."
Yeah.
We're studying that. We're taking commentary.
I don't think any of us out here are for any kind of thing like that. And I think that there will be a fight because, look, CBDCs are coming and digital currency is coming. And like any technology or anything, it can be used for good or for evil. We will be fighting for the good. And so I think that these people that want to control everyone will have to be fought back on that end of things, but we can only hope that we can fight the good fight and defeat any of that kind of thing. Now, he also had a great clip here. I call this one payment currency. That sounds interesting.
It's important to distinguish between a payment currency and a reserve currency. The dollar dominates both realms, but it's much easier to replace the dollar as a payment currency. If you have enough parties that agree, you can use baseball cards or bottle caps if you want to.
Which is what Russia's doing right now. That's a payment currency in that scenario.
Correct.
Yeah.
That is already going on. Those talks are fairly advanced. There's, the BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, but it's now morphed into the BRICS Plus. They've invited Iran, Turkey, Argentina, Brazil, and other countries to join that group. There's something called the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, led by China and Russia with some Central Asian states. And there's a third group called the Eurasian Economic Union. It was sort of Russia's answer to the EU, but that involves, Belarus, some Eastern European countries, Russia, and some Central Asian republics. So those three organizations, all multilateral, and you say, they're just emerging economies, who cares? No, we're talking about half the population of the planet, more than half of the global GDP, and major oil exporters and natural resource producers, strategic metals, agriculture. This is a big deal. They are already working on these channels. They're actually doing exactly what John Maynard Keynes wanted to do here at Bretton Woods in 1944. They're talking about nobody wants the ruble as a payment currency or the Chinese yuan. That's not going to happen. Right. But they could invent a totally new currency. Call it whatever you want. I mean, John Maynard Keynes did. He called it the Bancor. Backed by, at first he said a commodity basket, so much oil, so much wheat, so much gold, etc. And then he said, but oil's not really fungible. There's 70 kinds of oil based on viscosity and sulfur and all that, and wheat, it spoils and whatever. So let's just go to gold to simplify it. So a lot of times you end up with gold, not because it's shiny and pretty, but because it actually works. Mm-hmm. We're going down that path. In the meantime, China's talking to Saudi Arabia about selling or buying oil for China's yuan. Russia's talking to India about they don't want Indian rupees. I mean, how much curry do you want to buy? But they're talking about accepting the UAE dinar. which is coming along. Dubai is a major financial center, transshipment center, and if you have dinar, you can use them for something. And India's got a lot of dinar because there's so many Indians in the UAE who are sending remittances, and then other transactions going on. So this is all happening. So then the question, where does it go from here? I was in a meeting once at the Pentagon, and I was 2 seats away from a guy named David Dollar, who was the Assistant Secretary of the Treasury at the time, but he was in charge of federal finance. Interesting last name.
I was going to say that.
Perfect.
David Dollar, he's a real guy, he's out there. And I told him, or exactly what I just told you and told our audience. I mean, I've been saying this for a while. And he slams both hands on the table like that, and he goes, the dollar has been the global reserve currency, the dollar is the global reserve currency today, and the dollar will always be the global reserve currency. I said, David, I feel like I'm in Whitehall in 1913 listening to John Bull tell me about how sterling will rule the world forever. Right. And the answer is these things do come and go.
Right.
But I think we're pretty far down that path. So as a payment currency, I think we're going to see a lot of substitutes very quickly. As a reserve currency, it will take longer because you don't pile up $100 bills in the basement. You need an asset, and that's
right.
Treasury bills and notes. We haven't found a good substitute asset. Rule of law is a big factor. But
all right, 2 things to get out of that: payment currency and gold. Gold will be involved. That is why my sponsors Glint. So I've been stockpiling my gold in my Glint account so that I have it with my debit card, debit and MasterCard, and it is spendable gold. Okay, the link, you got to click the link. Tell them DAI sent you. The link is at the top of the description of this video. Something else interesting about Jim Rickards. Remember, Jim Rickards this week is live at Bretton Woods. This tweet right here was brought to my attention. I do remember the tweet, but it was brought to my attention by XRP Diamonds to the Sky. This is from July 2nd, 2019. Financial Times on Judy Shelton. She wanted a new Bretton Woods style conference to reset the international monetary system. If it takes place at Mar-A-Lago, that would be great. Chapter 6 of Aftermath, which is his book, is the Mar-a-Lago Accord with Judy Shelton epigraph. Coincidence? So my question is, it just so happens he's at Bretton Woods Live the same week that, and he said that a new Bretton Woods might be called the Mar-a-Lago Accord, and the same week Trump gets raided by the FBI at Mar-a-Lago. You have to wonder if there are any coincidences. Now, I wanted to show you this. I thought this was cool. So look at this. This is just this person's timeline, settlement, their ideal price timeline. Let me write that down. That's a good thumbnail. Price timeline. I think this is pretty cool. The person might be right, might be wrong, but I think that the spirit of it is kind of in line with what I think. They've got 3 pre-settlement XRP pumps to all-time high. In other words, rumors of a resolution of the case. I could see that happening. Ripple settlement announced to public. Actual settlement announcement surges to $8. I could see that happening. Exchange relist. Exchanges all relist XRP. I question whether or not that's ever going to happen, because there's a part of me that believes that they don't want this to be on retail exchanges, that this would be for institutionals going forward. Then $22, I do think when Ripple goes public, you're going to see a surge in the XRP price. And then they've got $56 when ODL's turned on. Now, I would add something here. ODL's turned on, banks turned on ODL, and the switch finally flapped. I think he meant flipped. But I think that this right here, see, once you get this, all of a sudden these banks can not just use XRP, but own and hold XRP is the way I understand it. I think that at the point that this happens, these numbers start to get crazy, because you're talking trillions. Remember, it's, I don't remember the number, but I think it's like, is it like 7 or 8 or 10? I think it's 10 trillion was the number in the Nostro Vostro accounts. The second that is replaced by XRP, you're talking about some crazy numbers, folks. It starts getting crazy. But I think this is a neat timeline anyway, whether you agree or not. The official cool guy of the Digital Asset Investor is checking, of the Digital Asset Investor channel is checking in today.
What's up, fam? Happy Friday. This is no time to back down. Put the pedal to the metal. Brush off that fatigue. We're in a time of history where they're persecuting their political enemy, their competition. Sound familiar, XRP Army? Gary! Are you there? Gary, all you'll be known for is ETHgate. What's up, fam?
I mean, golly, speaking of Gary and William Hinman, Crypto Law, John Deaton's law firm, has put together another hit video. Let's see how many views this thing has gotten so far today. I think it's a lot. I bet it's a lot. So far, he's at 29,000. This will be over 100,000 views by tonight. Listen to this.
When William Hinman was named Director of Corporation Finance at the SEC, he fought to keep getting millions of dollars in payments from his old law firm, Simpson Thacher. But Hinman was warned by the ethics office it would be a crime to do anything that would affect Simpson Thacher. No meetings, no phone calls, or he'd be breaking criminal law. But Hinman ignored the legal warnings. He met with Simpson Thacher again and again. He met repeatedly with head of its D.C. office before and after he delivered a market-moving speech declaring the digital assets Bitcoin and Ether as not securities. When Simpson Thacher joined the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance, a group with the sole mission to promote Ethereum. Then Hinman connected with Chris Lin, a partner in the Simpson Thacher's China office, who had IPO business before Hinman's division for a Chinese client that makes and sells Bitcoin and Ether mining equipment. Lin asked to meet with Hinman to, quote, report what is going on in China. Hinman said yes. Did Hinman commit a crime? It's time for an investigation. Only Congress has oversight on the SEC. Demand your lawmakers support an investigation. Connect to Congress today.
All right, two things I wanted to bring to everybody's attention. First of all, he is a current advisor, or whatever they call it, to Andreessen Horowitz. So I think Andreessen Horowitz, maybe they'll want to weigh in on this video. Then I wanted to remind everybody that not one person in Congress has called for an investigation of the SEC and its potential criminal conflicts. Elections are coming. We need to keep reminding everyone of that. Now, back to Gary Gensler's calendar. This is his meeting with the CCP, okay? This is his SEC counterpart. But make no mistake, this is the Chinese Communist Party's SEC, their version of the SEC, because this guy was put there by the CCP. All right? So I said, think of it. Gary Gensler has meetings with his CCP counterparts who openly try to subvert U.S. sanctions, but sue Ripple, who has openly worked to comply with all such regulations. He also ignores over 70,000 XRP holders he claims to protect. So here's Gary meeting with the CCP, their SEC, and here is the same their version of the SEC. China meets banks to discuss protecting assets from U.S. sanctions. In other words, subverting U.S. sanctions. Senior regulators, including Yi Human, chairman of their version of the SEC, met with all these people for them to all put their heads together to figure out how to get around U.S. sanctions. Meanwhile, this is Ripple. RippleNet, this is Brad Garlinghouse, for example, has always been and remains today committed to not working with sanctioned banks or countries that are restricted counterparties. Ripple and our customers support and enforce OFAC laws and KYC AML. And here's Ripple hiring head of AML and sanctions compliance, money laundering reporting officer. Ripple's expanding its global AML sanctions team. They've got a whole team dedicated to sanctions. While Gary is meeting with the Chinese communists who are trying to subvert U.S. sanctions all the time. Does this make any sense to you? Well, look at Library's tweet. Our simple, humble request is to be regulated by people who aren't criminals. Wowzers. Then there was this. This went under the radar, but I saw it and I wanted to bring it to your attention. We keep talking on this channel about how my thought pattern has always been that they're going to go after Tether, and once they take Tether out and it collapses the market, that's when they're going to come in, and the U.S. government and the regulators and the Wall Street are going to come in to save you, because you just can't trust this unregulated market. Now, this guy is the guy that Gary met with, okay? He seems like an unknown guy. Lev Manand is his name. At 10 p.m., he's on the phone with him. All right? Well, I went to this guy's Twitter feed and started looking around in his Twitter feed, and I went and looked at his LinkedIn profile. Turns out he was an economist at the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. He was also a senior advisor at the U.S. Department of the Treasury. So I type him in on YouTube, and the first thing that comes up, shadow banking. Okay, so he's got a term that he calls shadow banking, the rise of shadow banking. All right, is this guy, and there's a whole video clip on this. He even wrote a book. Now, so what I did is I put all of that together, but then I went through his Twitter feed, and I found a bit of a pattern. This guy has it in for Tether. He keeps talking about a Tether, and Tether bank runs in here. And remember, he's on the phone with Gary Gensler, and he's worked for the Federal Reserve and the Treasury. All these people are on the same team. Tether redemptions are just pouring into Bitfinex. Now, who is Gary going? Who did we just see that there's an investigation of yesterday? Bitfinex. Tether redemptions are just pouring into Bitfinex right now. This wallet alone has done this. Then he says this. Silent run on Tether continues. Then there's this. He retweeted this. Tether, an offshore coin with less frequent attestations and riskier backing. And then there's this one. As the Fed tightens financial conditions, it increases the likelihood of a run on an unstable shadow bank money. Those monies least likely to receive government backing are the ones most likely to get into trouble first. And he's on the phone with Gary Gensler late night. I'm the digital asset investor. I'm not an investment advisor. This is for entertainment purposes only. Please subscribe, hit the like button, and tell your friends and family that where there's smoke, there's fire. Thanks.